All right, welcome back. Conversations with Casey Mental Health Awareness Month edition. And we have none other than Capri Richardson, who is a sports mental health therapist and former collegiate and professional athlete and coach. So, Capri, welcome in.
Thanks, Casey. Appreciate you.
So, curious to know about your story, maybe a little bit your background, kind of the overlap between athletics realm and the health practitioner side.
Yeah. Um, I'll say kind of with my experience of even getting to where I am, it started off within athletics, but I feel like I've stumbled into a lot. What I mean by that is when I started playing elite sports, especially in volleyball, which is what I went on to pursue. I was told in high school uh, that club volleyball even exists, which is like travel ball, right? And with that introduction into that space and that world of really getting to see like how deep the rabbit hole goes, I guess, if you will. I was told like, yeah, you can do this. I started playing around 16 years old is when I started playing competitively, which was my junior year. Yeah. Um, it was mind blowing of like how people can just be so um, competitive, so enthralled within their own sport. And so I was like, well, I just want to keep doing this. Like that works for me. And then I was like, as far as college goes, I didn't even know that you could play in college, let alone get like a scholarship for it and all of that. And I'll say my naivete was due to my parents being in the Air Force. And so you're traveling and living in different states, countries. So I had no clue of this world. And then my senior year was when I actually started the recruiting process when someone was like, you know, you can play in college, right? And I was like, no, I didn't know that, but okay, I guess let's see what this is about. And that's when I went on that journey and eventually got signed to play at the University of Montana. And I was actually the first African American volleyball player for that program, which goes to show the naivete again of like didn't even know what questions to ask or what this might even look like. Um, so then my college career happened, and I was like, okay, cool. I minored or majored in psychology, minored in dance, and was like, well, I'm just gonna go do something with that. Maybe get my PhD or something. And then had a coaching change my senior year of college, and a coach was from the USA pipeline, and he was like, you know, you could play professionally, right? And I was like, didn't know that either. And so stumbled into that and went through that process and ended up playing professionally in Europe for 3 years. Had pretty good seasons over there. And then I was like, okay, I do want to get back to my ultimate goal of, you know, furthering my education in the psychology field. And went on to do that in grad school to become a counselor and didn't know that I could coach and do school, so a grad assistantship. So again, stumbled into that, and that's how I got experience coaching collegiately as well as club. So with high school sports or youth sports. Um, and then after that, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna see general population or prison population. Even was a thought for a little while and then stumbled into a conference for a specific tract of therapists, licensed marriage and family therapy, and saw a guy wearing a Baylor like athletic logo polo shirt, and I was like, "What is he? What are you doing here? Like, why is an athletic person in here? You know?" And then he was like, "Yeah, we're within athletics too." And I was like, "Didn't know that." So that's how I stumbled into where I am now of being a mental health therapist for the athletic population.
Wow, that's a great story. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is Montana's mascot the grizzly bears? Grizz?
There you go. Because I was like, if you
Yeah,
say that other one, we're not going to
yeah.
be friends.
I know. I know that rivalry. Wow, from Grizzlies to Baylor Bears. That's a interesting connection.
Didn't even
Yeah.
look at that.
Um,
Yeah.
The only thing I know about Montana, as far as athletics realm, is it's the home state of Phil Jackson, a longtime NBA coach. So,
Mm.
but what was I'm actually curious. What was your experience like when you transitioned to Montana? Um, maybe the like that first year or so as a student
Mhm.
athlete. How did that shape your next few years, right? And then also as a follow up question of that, what was your experience like in some of the European countries that you played in, and how did that impact your perspectives?
Yeah. Thanks for that question, because it really does, right? Like the beginning, first impressions leave a lasting impression, right? So my first year at Montana was very difficult, very. Some for the betterment of like my personal development, and then some could have done without. So my freshman year, right, I was redshirted and essentially saying you're not ready enough to compete. And so that also had moments of like isolation because I was the only one also in my class and on my team at that point. And so I would not travel all the no, I traveled all the time, but I would get right left on the bench, like don't even bother suiting out. Um, Actually, they did leave me for one trip once. I don't remember what it was, but in either case, that's a part of that role. And then having to do extra workouts or training to like get me ready wasn't always fun, but that was for my betterment, right? And then also from like a social standpoint within my team, um, like I said, I was the first African American girl to play or woman to play for them, and my teammates were all from like the Pacific Northwest and Montana as well. So some of their outlook on life was obviously very different from mine, right? It was Lululemon this and, you know, Stanley's that, or whatever the equivalent of that was back then. And I was just like, I don't know what any of that means, but okay. So culture shock kind of there from both sides, and sometimes turned into like microaggressions or even like just racism that I experienced while I was at Montana. So that was pretty tough. Um, and then my great grandmother passed, and then my father actually passed while I was playing um, that that freshman year. So really tough, but it also opened my eyes to the struggle of an athlete. Not just my own experience, but how tough it must have been for my teammates to be concerned about what their bodies look like, even though it's like in my mind, I'm like, we're athletes, we're supposed to be eating, or we're supposed to be, you know, fueling our bodies and what we consume, whether that's media or fuel, in ways that best help that versus why are we all drinking, you know, insanely so much on a weekend where we compete, you know. So it really opened the doors to before I even realized, because like I said earlier, I stumbled into this field, but before I even realized, like that was my introduction of like, no, this population needs help too. Um, and then my European career, I would say that traveling overseas was not new for me because, like I said earlier, my parents were in the Air Force. I actually had a time where we lived in Japan for a little while. And yeah, that was so nice, so awesome. I'm very thankful for that experience. And then prepared me to be able to live on my own overseas and adapt versus, you know, being homesick and things. But I would hear from other Americans or even some of the other foreign players that were from different countries talk about, you know, homesickness and things that they felt made them feel othered or isolated from where they feel comfortable. And then understanding how different cultures celebrate different things in general or go through different things and then they celebrate um, that adversity unknowingly. Like one of the countries I played in was Kosovo, and that was an area that was stricken by the, you know, Yugoslav war in the 90s. Um, and they still have stories that people my age right, are talking about and living through, of seeing, their neighbors go to war with one another, and still how that carries on, how they treat their Serbian neighbors versus, how Albanians were treated, things like that. That made me think, like, wow, look at these folks that have gone through something that I thankfully being spoiled in America did not have to worry about. And they still are playing the same sport I'm playing and still playing it well, and really see volleyball as their refuge from some of the things that they still have to deal with.
Oh, it's a lot of experiences over time that shape anyone's life. I'm just thinking about all the different perspectives you might have had, and cultural experiences too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. So when you were talking about the different places you've been, and even going back to Montana, right? Who was there anyone that stood out to you? Not necessarily like from the athletic space, but maybe someone either from the community or and could be a health practitioner um, that really impacted you and made a difference for the better, right? A positive impact on your student athlete career, and then also transition to your career as a professional athlete overseas in any of those places.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that unfortunately, it was not a mental health clinician. After my dad passed, it was recommended that I see somebody, and it was like on campus help or something like that, and it was totally dismissive of my like athletic career and how that even played a part in the relationship I had with my dad, things like that. So I was like, dang. I guess that was another reason why I was like, maybe I need to do this actually, because when I came face to face with that, it was not handled well. So unfortunately, it was not someone from that realm, but it was someone from, they were within the University of Montana community, but also on the outskirts of it. So I also became a part of the Black Student Union, which was also one of the first in the country, if not the first, if I can remember, um, at Montana, because it was obviously probably needed. So the person who ran that, Murray Pierce, he he spoke to me. He went around to all the teams to speak to all of their like athletes, because it's not just for Black athletes. Allies are welcome too, um, to be a part of it. And freshman year, I kind of just like, yeah, I don't have time for that, or yeah, okay. And then eventually, I started to take it seriously and be like, I really need community out here, and not just like my athletic community, but he was a part of helping me build that to the point where I became president of it while still juggling school and sports, and dance. Like I said, I minored in that, so you have to do productions and things like that too for your curriculum. But I was like, this is important to me, and even to this day, we still stay in touch.
Yeah, it's there's always one, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
thinking back to my experiences too, like there's always those people that stand out that we never forget. And so I think um, it's just always helpful to highlight that, right? Especially maybe when we were in school, we didn't have resources in athletics, or even within like the school realm, it wasn't as much of a thing, right, as it
Right.
is now. And so I think there's been a lot of progress in a short amount of time, but rightfully so, right? Um, and then thinking about the college space now, right? You have transfer portal, name and image likeness, NIL, and then add that to the mix with everything else that's going on in student athlete lives. There's just a lot, right? Society. So, what do you think, in your opinion, is probably the most important thing right now for student athletes as far as bridging the gap, right, with people in the health space, whether it be therapists, counselors, um, just in general, right? whether
Hmm.
it's either a topic area or something that you've experienced.
Yeah. I would say to help bridge that gap, um, it's not it's not totally on the ones that are wanting or needing the help. It's not totally on the audience, right? Because they don't know. And on the responsibility is also on people in my position. I'll just say that to make it aware and apparent, like if you are struggling with these things, then it's okay to speak up. But some people don't even realize that they're struggling, right? Like if you're in a fish tank, you don't know that you're in a tank. You think you're in the ocean, you know? So it can be on us to be like, hey, if you're feeling this way, just let you know it's normal, but it's not normal. And we can, work through that. If you're feeling like it's affecting you, like it's not great for you to walk around feeling like I'm dysfunctionally functioning. So I think that's a big part of it, that awareness piece. And obviously, with it being May is Mental Health Awareness Month, um, it's like cool, that's where we can start. But then also, it's the action. So, people, again, in my position, helping people take that action of like, okay, now that you are aware of the signs and symptoms, here is what we can do. And if we got to handhold people through it, right? Like this work is some of the toughest work that one can do in their life, is looking in the mirror. Then we have to also be gentle and collaborative in that process. So I think that's the best way to bridge the gap is to be like, let's walk over this bridge together.
I like that. It's more of a um, yeah, collaborative effort versus kind of when you get into the, I'm the
Mhm.
expert and you're my client, right? I
Yeah,
think, especially with younger generations, that could seem a
yeah,
little overbearing, right?
that doesn't work anymore.
What do you think? Not necessarily just the college space, but and focus on the U.S. like specifically, right? Not other countries. What do you think has been? We'll look at it from two sides, right? Um, in your opinion, what has been the most impactful as far as progress goes in athletics, whether it be interscholastic, intercollegiate, or even youth sports? And then the flip side, what would you say is one of the biggest challenges right now?
Okay. I will say the biggest positive is going back to the generation we're talking about. Like these younger generations do not play when it comes to their mental health. Like it's almost uh like you get cool points for saying you have a therapist, which I'm like, okay, sure, yeah, I love that because we're breaking the stigma. Um, but the fact that everyone's like, yeah, you need a therapist, you need a therapist, you need a therapist is like, okay, there's a problem. Like we're like in that profession where it's like, yes, you need us, but we also don't want you to need us, right? So I think that's a positive at least to start of like people are more willing to talk about it, talk about mental health, talk about struggling, right? Not trying to just look like you have it all together. Like that is going out the window. Um, and then I will say for challenges, I'll just keep it in that realm. I think also the challenge is over awareness or over knowledge of, the different things that one can experience in this life. And then maybe not seeing the nuance in it, right? And what I mean specifically, social media of saying, like, you have ADHD if you do this. And it's like, actually, not quite. Just because you are checking your phone every 3 minutes and you're doing this does not mean that you have ADHD. It could be actually anxiety or um, OCD. Like, who knows, right? But that nuance gets missed, especially when we're in a culture of like quick access, instant gratification, sound bites. So I will say that's the challenge too for people in our, my position to be like, hey, that's great that you are talking about it, but also if we're gonna talk about it, let's let's be accurate too.
I like that. Yeah, I feel like a lot gets overdiagnosed, right? And so I think it's like, again, it's that almost like popularity
Okay.
of, oh, if you have this, then maybe I do too, right? And you want to be inclusive. But
Mm-hmm.
um, so I was thinking about something because you minored in dance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my sister years ago in her I guess high school and below was a dancer, ballet, tap, jazz, hip hop. Um, how did dance help you as maybe like an outlet, either directly, indirectly, with any challenges you might have had, or even just to offset something outside of the athletics realm?
Yeah. Beautiful question. Really, dance became a huge outlet for me before I realized I had other communities with me, like the Black Student Union, or even like my professors in the psychology department. That became an outlet for me too. But I would have like dance jam sessions on my own, and not just in my room, but we would be in season and we would be traveling for the weekend. And usually Sunday is like your rest day where you are most likely at home trying to catch up on the week, whatever. And sometimes, after I'd be done with my homework and everything, I would go to the dance studio on campus and get access to the stereo speaker or stereo system. Again, because it's Sunday, everyone's doing their own thing. They're not worried about who's in there. um, I would just blast my music and just have the entire space to leap, jump, roll on the ground, you know, scream sometimes, um, and just do whatever my body felt like it needed to let go of, or do so that I could show up authentically and without the weight. So that's how it showed up for me while I was in college, while I was in the thick of it myself. And then afterwards, becoming a practitioner who likes to use somatic work, right? Like the body tells us and speaks so much for us, and we have to learn to listen to it and treat it kindly. So, using that in my work with athletes, a population you think is in touch with their bodies, but they are not.
I love that. I Now it's interesting because I think everyone just dances. It's the TikTok generation of, but yeah, that's dance is an outlet. I just think of one of my favorite people in life, Bruce Lee, when he says, express yourself. And how that looks like is different for everyone, right? And so some people, um, they like more downtime. Some people like more active lifestyle. So it just depends. But I agree with that. I think it's always good to have those outlets.
Yeah, yeah, and dance also doesn't have to mean like putting on a show or flailing
Hmm.
around. Sometimes dance can just be movement, period, right? Like walking. That is a dance that your version of a walk is going to be different from my version, and how beautiful that is because of how we hold our bodies, because of the experiences that we've had that make us hold our bodies in a certain way.
Or for all my basketball aficionados and years ago, doing moves in the hallway, right?
Mm,
Crossovers and spin moves.
that's a
Uh,
dance.
that was our. All
Yeah.
right. I'm going to leave you with the final words. If you want to leave something with this audience, whoever it is, whether it's health practitioners, coaches, student athletes, um, what do you want them to take away from this conversation about not just mental health and athletics, but um, about wellness in general?
Yeah. Maybe I'll leave something for each. Does that work? Okay. Um, so for the student athletes, I want to leave them with um, even though we're hearing a lot about pressure is a privilege, that doesn't mean that the dysfunction that can come with that is, right? You do not have to suffer to be strong. Um, get the help you need, and know that there are resources out there. Now, bridging the gap, like we talked about earlier, to my practitioners out there, it's knowing that, like, there's the science is all around, right? Unfortunately, suicide is the second leading cause of death for NCAA athletes, right? There is no mystery of what do they need or, oh my gosh. No, you know it's there. So go across the bridge, get down from, right, the high horse that some of us might be on, and reach your hand out, right? Collaborate with them, meet them where they are, right? Speaking the jargon that sometimes we can is not helpful. That just stirs them away or further into their dysfunction. So reach your hand out and work with them where they are. And then to the coaches, you're the intermediary sometimes too. Sometimes you are the bridge. And being able to, one, ask for help yourselves, because a healthy coach is a healthy culture. So if you feel like you are also struggling, be okay with letting down that pride a little bit that I think sometimes the coaching culture can have, and being like, okay, if I better myself, then I'm going to be better for my entire community, whether that's the athletes or the clinicians that I'm trying to attach them to, versus talking down about the mental health side. Like, sometimes you are the bridge, but we need you to be sturdy enough for all of us to cross.
Well said. And for anyone who wants to have any follow-up conversations with Capri, I put her contact info here.
Yay.
And I'll also put it in the description box for this video. So,
Beautiful.
Capri, thank you so much. I appreciate this conversation.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you for holding this space for us to do it. And I really appreciate what you're doing for our community.